Hello and welcome to another episode of CRT Sound System. So we've got some Outrun for you. It's episode 62.
Oh, yes.
Here as always with Reese as the passenger in the passenger seat of the Ferrari Testarossa that is this podcast. Reese, how are you?
Absolutely. I'm great. I am canonically the Outrun girlfriend. So
Fantastic.
do not get in a car accident. You will hurt the perfect sweetie.
Okay. And yeah, I suppose that makes Roar the backseat driver, I guess. Roar, how are you?
I'm doing great. In the spirit of this episode, I'm drink driving down Interstate 91 on my way to beautiful Massachusetts. So if you are between here and there, you should probably take a pit stop and wait for me to get by.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, so we're talking about Outrun. And yeah, that first track there was Splash Wave. Um Reese, what's your experience with Outrun? Tell me about it.
I love Outrun. The original. I played the shit out of it in the arcades when I was
Hmm.
a wee lass. And I don't know. I don't really have I never really engaged with it as a franchise ever. So I'm excited to learn more about the other Outrun.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot more Outruns than you might think, in fact.
doing the research for this episode, I couldn't even keep them all in my head. It was just like, my
Yeah.
goodness, there's so many ports, and each one's different and has its own little
Mm.
story. And but the arcade of Outrun and sort of like the I did not even really in any of the ports, not until they came out, was sort of like the one on the Switch.
Yeah.
Um, is all I really did it, but I absolutely fucking love Outrun. It was a real breakthrough moment for me in gaming, in sort of like, because to me this is the first video game to have vibes, and I'm gonna get a little bit more into that later. But it's just like I'm not really a car game person that much. Like I don't like racing games that much. Like Mario Kart, that sort of stuff is fun. And like I'll dip into it every now and then, but Outrun's different. Outrun is not like the Outrun is like taking your girlfriend to the beach simulator. And then you get into 7 accidents, but she forgives you,
You
baby.
just drive off.
Yeah.
You just keep driving.
You just keep driving.
It doesn't matter that a 50-ton car just got dropped on your head.
Exactly. That's why. See, this game goes by the correct theory that if you don't wear your seatbelt, you're just thrown clear and you're fine.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, that's my experience with it. It's just the music is, I think, the most important part of that. Not to discount the transcendent style, and the first open world racing game, but it is, yeah. That's my experience with it. Is just, I would go to the beat 'em ups, to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever was
Yeah.
available. The then sort of like I would get mad at the fighting games, and then I would just like cruise on to the Outrun station. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my experience.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Roar?
Uh, Actually, I was looking at just kind of what Outrun had done, and really where it looks like the apex was around Outrun 2 in its arcade cabinet. I was busy being a Dynasty Warriors autistic, so it
Okay.
kind of blew right by me. But uh, a while ago, I had taken a little road trip down to see Reese in person, and I think it ended up being like a 14-hour drive. So I asked Reese to make me some playlists.
Mhm.
And right as the sun started coming over the crest in beautiful Maryland, I hear the song we just heard actually come onto my car stereo, and I start
Oh,
bobbing my
incredible.
head, and I'm jamming. I'm half awake. I'm 3 energy drinks in. I'm not watching the speedometer, and what a fucking time!
Oh
That's
Wow.
a
yeah.
that's just the perfect way to listen to that music, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it real it that that's so wonderful. Um I'm glad it could be so serendipitous. Really, what you hope and dream of for a playlist creation scenario, and you just kind of
Mm,
like like when I'm trying to like think about like what the order is going to be, it's sort of like there is absolutely an element of fate uh like guiding my hand, or I'm just like I don't know if this is the best order in terms of like listenable flow, but Outrun's got to go here. Otherwise, it's just like it's all going to crumble. So
yeah.
Every
I
time you
think
try to change it, it just goes back to where it was and says no.
exactly. Suddenly I just wake up and it's the morning again. It's just like I have to redo the playlist.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the joy of playlisting as well as, I know like that's basically why I ended up starting doing this podcast in a lot of ways. It's just like spending a bunch of time just making playlists. So I was just like, well, I might as well make this into something fun as well. But like, yeah, just sort of finding a good groove for tracks to fit into is when one hits right in the perfect spot, it's always such a good feeling.
It's amazing, and yeah, it was a
Mm.
moment. The windows had to come down, the hair had to come down. It was truly the outrun moment of the journey.
Wonderful,
Excellent.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And and it was the loveliest trip.
Yeah, that sounds. I feel like America is possibly the only country where you can drive for that long without really stopping, except for maybe like Australia. Like you can't, like you couldn't drive more than I think 5 hours is the longest like straight line drive from the top to bottom of Ireland.
Yeah.
Like I drove from Cork where I live, which is basically in the south, up to Belfast. Shortly after we moved to Cork. Um, and it was like a 6 hour drive, um, which is like wouldn't even get you across a state in some parts of America.
That's
No.
Pennsylvania. It's 6 hours of a trip.
Like yeah. Whereas in Ireland, like that's the entire country almost. Like I could drive another hour to reach the north coast, but like for the most part, once like you can go Cork to Belfast, and that's a 5.5 hour drive. Like, and that's basically one of the longest drives that you can make on like a motorway. Yeah,
uh,
that's wild.
yeah, that's true. And I think America is unique even among, I'm sure if you're taking a road trip in Siberia, sure you can drive for quite some time. But like
Yeah,
also in the United States, it's a little bit it's not just that the scenery is, I think, a bit more varied than some of these other countries. It's just that the roads are so well serviced, and
yeah.
not in the sense that they're like good roads, are usually not, but it's just like there's rest stops and Kentucky Fried Chickens and the greatest ball of yarn in Minnesota, that sort of
Gotta,
thing.
you got it. I like when my wife and I have done drives in America. Yeah, it's just like you can't go that far without stopping at a Cracker Barrel or fucking
Mm.
something like that. Yeah,
I love
ever.
it. It's like the stage changes and all of a sudden there's different fast food franchises. What's a
Yeah.
Sheets? I've gotten gas before, but not like this.
Yeah. 100%. And there's a narrative to just being on the road where it's its
Mm,
own separate dimension away from the rest of reality in like American
yeah.
driving. Like I've driven across the country twice, and I hate cars, and now my eyesight is not nearly as good, and so it's like I'm a little bitter that I'm unable to drive nearly as well. But I just think about that, and it is such a magical time because you just have your own. You're going on your own like hero's journey every day, and it's just like, like you roll out of the Motel 6 and you're just like, okay, I planned my trip and I've got to go. We gotta hit Reno tonight. And it's just like you go through the mountains or wherever else you're going and see what dipshits or heroes you see on the road. It's really special. And I think that's what Outrun quite explicitly is trying to evoke.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah. I believe, in fact, that they for when they were making this game, and definitely for the later games, but I'm pretty sure for this one as well, they were sent to America with a Ferrari and just
mhm.
told to drive as
Yeah,
like
yeah.
quote unquote research.
What an amazing process.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, and two, it's the game, at least allegedly, was inspired by Cannonball Run.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
at least sort of like the initial idea, which I
Mm.
think is very much in a movie that embraces these kind of ideas that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely. I think that like the '70s road movie is definitely a big touch point for a lot of this like Vanishing Point and stuff like that. Like it's definitely trying to sort of update it for the '80s with this like it's possibly the most '80s aesthetic ever invented.
oh
Um,
yeah.
but like it really is drawing on like '70s car movies in a big way as well.
Hmm, hmm.
What's the other? Oh yeah, Two Lane Blacktop is the other one that I was thinking of.
Oh
That's
hell yeah.
like, yeah, that's like I think this game is really sort of trying to evoke in its sort of like the way it crosses America.
Oh yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, and like the later games sort of tend to maybe sort of go more sort of a European style as well, like especially Outrunners and Outrun 2.
Hmm.
Um, but like yeah, this first game is really a vibe all in itself, as you mentioned, and like and to the point where it's sort of it in a certain circles it's become synonymous with the 80s. Like if you like listen to a lot of synthwave, you know, the term outrun comes up a lot in sort of like playlists and people describing a vibe for these playlists and the music itself. Even though like the music of Outrun is very much not synth wavy, um,
Yeah.
but it's you know it's interesting how that sort of in the reaching back to Outrun, that's sort of the vibe that they sort of pick up on.
And it's like a genre that's indicative of no musical qualities except for the vibe
Mm,
that you're in the 80s, where also Outrun is. It's a very strange, it's a very strange genre choice, yet I gotta give it to them, it works. Like
yeah,
when I see synthwave like referencing Outrun so much, I'm fucking pogging.
yeah,
I can't speak for anybody else,
Absolutely.
but it's incredible. And so yeah, I think it's very very telling what in the very best way possible. This is something that is both entirely, it's something I think most people can dial in on like, because it's not that complicated, of sort of like the driving and the Ferrari and the girlfriend and the sort of like the scrolling textures with the music, and but also it is something the same and something different to each person, and so it creates, it's this real magic of friction and frictionlessness. And I don't know, it's the perfect soundtrack in so many ways, and I'm
yeah.
Incredibly
excited.
easy to imprint onto
Oh yeah.
yourself when you're driving.
Hmm.
As yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think so. Yeah, we'll jump into the first block of tracks. The music for most of these is by HIRO. That's his name, but or that's not his name. It's Hiroshi Kawaguchi, but he just goes by HIRO. He's one of these sort of Sega lifers. He's been with Sega forever. I think he might even still be with them to this day. Yeah, he's got credits for like Monkey Ball soundtracks that were released this year and Sonic Superstars. You know, so like he's one of the big guys at Sega as far as music goes, and he's been there since the mid to late '80s. He's done like Galaxy Force, Afterburner, this bunch of other games. Any classic Sega game that you care to think of, like he's probably had a hand in the music in some way.
Yeah.
Um, and
uh
I think he's a member of the Sega Sound Team band. Um, and I think he's maybe in Blind Spot as well. I'm not too sure. Um, the sort of the official unofficial bands of the Sega soundtracks. which myself and Reese have sat down and watched some of their live gigs in the past and had a good time with us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's great too because this is like one of my favorite things is you look at the resume of people like this and you just look at Yakuza 3 and it's just like sound production. And it's like what does that mean? They have the composer of Outrun just like doing Foley work, Lord only knows.
Yeah.
Who but it's he worked on the Yakuzas as well. He worked on the new mid Sonic games. He cannot be stopped, and that's
Yeah,
why we love him.
Sega lifer. We've got 2 tracks from the 1986 arcade version of this game. So, Magical Sound Shower and Passing Breeze, possibly the two most famous songs from the game, other than Splash Wave. And then the last track is from Turbo Outrun, which is the sort of semi-sequel to the game. And that one is called Who Are You? Fantastic. Okay, I feel like we've been on a real journey with those 3 songs for sure.
Oh yeah,
Um,
seriously.
yeah, absolutely. Just
And watching the OutRunners Let's Play,
yeah,
the long play, and just having our fucking minds blown.
such a wild
Uh,
game. I'm looking forward to talking about that in a little while. Yeah, just Magical Sound Shower is possibly one of the most iconic video game soundtracks of all time. And I just love that whole calypso vibe to it. It's great.
Yeah, just like I've the instrumentation just drives me wild. Like it feels like everybody like it feels like a band playing it for you in low
Yeah,
resolution, and it's amazing how like everything sounds organic. Like it sounds like that's how a bassist would be bopping along there. That's how the drummer would comp it up. That's how the backing music would comp it up. The marimba solo there, just it just I want to arrange it for a real band and just jam.
yeah, it's great. Like, and we were talking about just like the instrument selections they have, and like the way they managed to get the sound chip to do those samples. I'm not sure again if they're samples or not, but um, just some really really good musicianship for something that is programmed is always wild to hear. And like, there's syncopations and there's fucking there's a lot of swing to them. Like it's so cool that like you can get this full band sound out of like um fairly rudimentary hardware.
Right.
um
It's
and
you
like
have to like
this is arcade stuff, so it's not as though it's like an NES chip or anything. But even so, like, yeah, it's just it's wild. What were you going to say? Sorry, Roar.
I just that like I used to compose electronic music and try to like include kind of organic sounding solos in it, and like that's some effort. You have to like adjust the velocity of every hit and just kind of
Yeah,
think about the phrasing, and it's not just like plugging the blocks in on the
and just
piano
having
roll.
everything quantized and like, yeah, like you have to have a feel to something for it to sound like somebody's actually playing it. Um,
And you have to know like how would a drummer put a fill in here? How would
mm,
a mallet instrument do this lick? And it's just so good. And just like how would the bassist just be there bopping their head, with that really bouncy, punchy bass? I love that bass in Sound Shower and
mm.
in the track that followed that I already the name slipped me. But it
Passing breeze, yeah.
Yeah, Passing Breeze. That was like, I can't believe that's for an arcade game. That just is a piece in and of itself. I got lost in it and I came back near the end. I'm like, oh, we're still here, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. And then like the Turbo Outrun, as I mentioned, not a great game, but the soundtrack is still really fucking good. A little bit more rocky, I suppose, than than what you get on the original soundtrack, but like, um, it's a nice addition to what's already there. I really really like it. I'd say I wouldn't recommend playing it over the original Outrun, just because as Reese said, it's the original Outrun with the turbo button.
yeah.
There's nothing that new or interesting, and it plays a little more slowly. It's a bit more sluggish. Um, but yeah, then you have Outrunners, which is sort of the real sequel to Outrun, and it's really like it's not a well-known game, I don't think comparatively, but it's there's so much going on in it, and like there's like incredible effects on the like super scaler that they've managed to get out of it. Like you get there's a real sense of like 3D height. When you get like chicanes and like and the up and down of the roads and everything, like it's absolutely wild how they managed to get that out of the hardware in 1993. And on top of that, then the music is really good. So we're going to get to that in the next block. But the thing we were enjoying most, I think, was just all the different locations. Like it's there's a lot more of the world to it.
Yeah.
Often in fun, interesting ways. Like we just saw there, we were looking at a screenshot that I posted, where one of your choices at the end of a track is to go to either Niagara Falls or South America. um, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot more like track selection. There's a lot more car selection. You've got different riders depending on the car you choose. Um, And they all have fun little animations at the end of their race as well. What were we going to say? Sorry.
No, just that they're incredible. You know, the Outrun couple is such a great set of characters.
Yeah, an
And I feel
incredible
like
visual shorthand that I think they. Yeah, go on. Sorry, no, I
no,
interrupted you.
you're
Sorry.
totally right. Visual
Yeah,
shorthand is the perfect term to use for the expansion in Outrunners, where there's these this is these set of duos that each set I'm looking at has their own little story. We got the gals just being pals drivers that I'm currently paused on. There's the African
they're just good
American
friends.
couple. Yeah, they're just great friends. There's the African American couple, and the guy's like it looks like just like the hottest twink that has ever existed.
Yeah,
It's incredible, and the girl does like a flip into his arms. It's just like so fucking charming, each one. Um,
the couple that's in the. I love the couple that's in that like 50s fucking Cadillac style car, and she's got like this massive beehive hairdo. They're great. And then there's that one couple where one of them, I'm pretty sure, is the sprite from Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Um, yeah, like there's so much going on in the game. Like like it's, as a sequel, they expanded so much on what's there. And like a lot of the music's the same, so we're going to hear some more arrangements from of some of the same tracks on it.
the lesbian gals, when their finished animation is that they get back in the car and they blow through a police barricade, and the cops, all the cop cars get blown up, and they drive off.
Perfect.
So
No notes.
exactly.
Lesbians
Um,
doing crimes,
exactly.
fucking love it.
The so I have a universal uh game design, game construction theory that I think Outrun fits into very well. Is that I think not every game doesn't need all three of these, and oftentimes I think it might be to a game's detriment to to mishandle trying to have each of these pillars.
Mm.
But video games need to either have numbers, flow. So like numbers would be, you know, looter shooters, flow, Tetris, or vibes. And Outrun invented vibes in video games, like I already said. And and that dovetails as I want to celebrate what I think is maybe it's a small thing, but I think is the greatest touch to Outrun is the fact that it's not that it plays the song at random. It's not that
Yeah.
different places have different songs. Is you start the
Mm-hmm.
journey by putting on your tunes. You decide whether you want Magical Sound Shower or Passing Breeze, and it's so great where you're just like, especially like when I was playing this on the Switch so much, and just being like, I have such a strong memory of just being like, oh, we got to do another Passing Breeze run. I feel like I'm not hitting it with the Magical Sound Shower, which is there's just, you know, thoughts in the moment. It's not speaking ill of Magical Sound Shower, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but um, but yeah, and I think that's so compelling. And I
Mm.
learned that it was Outrun 2, is that right? That had the actual arcade, the on the arcade, the radio was like the button on the button on the outside that you could adjust.
Not on
Um,
any of the arcade cabinets that I've seen, but there are a bunch of different revisions of it, so it could definitely have been on one of them.
because that just sounds like the fucking greatest video game
Yeah.
ever made.
I will tell everybody about how much I love Outrun 2 in the next vlog for sure.
Excellent, can't wait.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, fuck, I forgot what I was going to say. I got too distracted by Outrun 2. I was like, ooh, Outrun 2 time. But yeah, no, like it's absolutely, the vibes in these games are just immense. I really can't fault them. I really can't praise them enough. And yeah, like that, just like that little screen before you start the race, after you start, like, pick your car, and it like has the little animation of the guy tuning the radio.
Yeah.
It's such a, yeah, again, it really just adds to the vibe, and like lets you and lets you pick your vibe in a lot of ways as well, like where you can just sort of come in and be like, yeah, say today I'm feeling a magical sound shower. Um, but maybe, yeah, you might want to switch out then for a passing breeze then, to if the vibe isn't right for you on that day.
Hmm. And I think too, for 1986, that's fucking crazy, right? It is nuts that a game looked and felt and sounded like this in 1986.
Oh,
Um, I,
absolutely.
I was hitting arcades during that time. I was quite young, but
Mm.
I feel like I have very strong, not fully formed, but definitely like proto memories where just like me and Outrun in the arcade. And it's just sort of like, since you're just cruising and just dodging cars, like it was a very approachable game. It's not just like I'm trying to play a beat 'em up or Donkey Kong or something and just getting absolutely fucking obliterated. Um, I felt like, like, oh, I'm a 5-year-old in the car. Yeah. And I don't know, I'm so impressed whenever there's a game that is of the more formative era of the medium that is able to have such a strong organic sound like this.
Mm.
I can only, sort of speculate, but I have to imagine that working with sort of like the tracker software of the time to create stuff like that and transferring your compositions to the whatever floppy disks that could run through the software is just like a level of programming challenge as well that just blows me away that they were able this game is truly a game that defines being greater than the sum of its parts, because the parts are so fucking simple. It's just these it's for the time the sprites were big and beautiful in a way that sprites often were and weren't, and when there were big, beautiful sprites like that, they often weren't nearly as cohesive. But you look back on it now, and it feels like one of those games that you should connect more with the history than with the game itself. Like the thing I always think of is like, you watch Frankenstein today and you might think, oh, cool black and white movie, but nobody's fucking terrified of Frankenstein. Back then, when the black and white Frankenstein came out, people were fucking shitting their pants in the theaters for real. They'd never seen anything like that
No.
before. And I think that this is a game that, it's very easy to just like not to just get in the moment and just be like, oh, this is still cool. This is still really fun. The vibes are still really good. Um, and especially sort of like with some of the updates that we're going to look at and stuff like the Outrun on the Switch that has the same graphics but sort of like, just a couple of quality of life inclusions, more music, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I forgot
it's
they added music for the Switch version, yeah, didn't they?
yeah. It wasn't a ton, but it
It's
was
like
just,
two new
so
tracks or something. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm just, I don't know, I'm in love with it, and I love it. This is I was so excited when I learned that this was going to be the next Roar episode, because everything Roar says and does and is a part of excites me and fills me with joy.
Aw.
But also it is, there's a reason for that, because it is usually going to be a banger, whatever those things are. And I think it was just so perfect, and I have such a strong feeling about this original game that I have no experience really with the rest of the franchise, other than kind of like, doing a sort of like exploratory glance at like Outrun 2019 stuff like
Mm.
that, but not haven't played any of the other games, anything like that. So it's just, I don't know. I just it's such a dramatic video game in the best way possible. Just like dramatic in it being unleashed onto the gaming world.
I feel like
Anyways,
Sega had like a golden age of arcade cabinets, because like when I think of all the stuff in the arcade that like really caught my eye, it was like the Outrun cabinet, the K-On,
Ace
was that the
Harrier.
robot fighting one? Yeah, Ace
Yeah.
Harrier, the skateboarding game that you actually got on the skateboard and you had to hold on the rail so you didn't break your ankle, the Crazy Taxi cabinet, Ollie King, 18-wheel American Trucker, like there was
Yeah.
a time that like just like the Sega cabinet just felt like the anchor of the arcade, and I
Yeah.
feel Outrun really kind of added to that. And I know you're champing to get at Outrun 2, so I don't want to go too deep into it, but it just it's just it was really cool, just kind of like just putting this in kind of like Sega's like pantheon, if you will, of arcade cabinets that just
Mm.
really were different than the Donkey Kong or like the Simpsons beat 'em up game or whatever.
Yeah. There's a physicality to Sega machines at the like in their sort of heyday, and I think like that I think that's part of a big reason why like in the Shenmue games and in Yakuza, that they made the Sega arcade such a big part of it, because like it's such a big part of their legacy, but also like it's also just like the sense of like, as I say, physicality and space and everything that sort of is represented by these machines is hard to sort of to quantify, but it's a very very strong feeling, I think, that people sort of associate with these games.
yeah, absolutely. And I think too is that a lot of it to me has to do with this is a music podcast, but I think it's worth mentioning that Sega, I think, had just was dominant in the field of color as well. Like there's nothing more has brighter colors that nothing looked as good, especially so when Outrun was coming out. Like I feel like Sega really taught other games how to look big and bright and bold and fun in a way that a lot of games didn't know how to be. Like Donkey Kong's fun. Like Nintendo games are fun. And Nintendo arcade games are fun, but like Sega was just on another level. Like we're not going to delve too much into Afterburner, but I think Afterburner is a good game to mention within what we're talking about, because I feel like that's much more of an action game, but the way it looks and the way it uses sort of like these big bold colors to just like really kind of blow you out of the water, especially out of the time, is another great example. And the Master System too, like you compare it to the Nintendo. The Nintendo had such better hardware, had such better games, but you go back and look at those Master System games, and they're fucking pretty.
Yeah.
They look so colorful and fun. I absolutely see the appeal and see what Sega had going for it. And I think that is very much dovetails into what Roar Jasmine here is talking about very astutely.
Yeah. All right, that's a good thought to go out on, I think. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to listen to some music from OutRunners now. I have two arrangements from the original game, so Splash Wave and Last Wave. And then I have a third track which is called Blow Your Cool, and that one is composed by Takayuki Nakamura. So yeah, we'll jump in and listen to those, and we'll come in and talk a bit more later.
Having a Bang delish strawberry kiss.
Sounds
This was
nice.
substituted from the Ghost energy drinks I usually get. Because I had these delivered because it was just simply too cold for me to exit my blankets.
Oh,
I'm
Fair
sorry.
absolutely.
enough.
I'm sorry. But
Makes sense. Yeah.
but
Oh,
I will always remember Bangs because one of my guildies when I played World of Warcraft and raided on high level, just kind of casually dropped out of nowhere with no prompting that he had so many Bang energy drinks in a day he had a cardiac event.
Jesus.
So cheers. Uh,
Fucking slaunter to that. Yeah, absolutely.
anyway, I would not have told that story if I knew we were coming out of the music.
That's all right. I'm leaving that one in the edit, so don't worry. Yeah, no, the two versions of Splash Wave there are so good and so different from both from each other and from the original. And yeah, I like for the way Outrunners is as a sequel to Outrun, I think it's appropriate that the music is sort of increased in sort of complexity. Even though I don't think there's much more sort of going on in it than what was in the original, but I think um, they really pushed the hardware to and they were doing a lot of good stuff and sort of getting it to sound again like people are playing this music, that there's that there is a real feel to it. um and I love a good orchid. You can always fucking get me with an orchid.
Yeah, we were talking about how it doesn't, it's compressed in there, but it doesn't sound bad. There's a lot of times that, they may have tried to take the hardware to the edge with other games and it didn't sound good as a result. And I
Absolutely, yeah.
feel like they stayed just enough in the lines here and used the tools they had, because we were kind of laughing about like the pitch bending and things like
Yeah,
that, but like that's how, somebody who was really kind of making love to the music would play it. You give a
yeah.
guitarist the opportunity, they're going to pull on that string every chance they get.
Yeah, yeah, and like that, if you've got a keyboard, you want to be twiddling that one fucking dial every time you play it. Yeah, yeah, there's like some really good modulations and stuff like that, and it's really really cool. And then like the sort of the as we were saying, the smoky jazz club vibe to Last Wave as well is great. It's like a credit song, but it's yeah, it really creates a sense of space in a really cool way. Um, and like I said, obviously you're not going to hear that when you're driving. It doesn't really suit driving, but just as a credit song, just imagining like the sun setting as you're listening to that is a whole vibe in and of itself, I think.
Oh yeah, and I had to remind myself like this is something that's programmed, because like
Hmm.
I lost my mind just on the hi-hats, just the way that the dynamics were set up, the
Yeah.
syncopation, the way that the textures were changed between solos, between parts, between sections. It just there was a real love shown to the rhythm section that
Mm.
may sometimes be overlooked elsewhere, and I feel that it really shows through in the final bit, because you have like those gaps left by the melody instrument where the piano comes in on the tags, and
Mm.
the drummer is playing along with the comps, and it's not just like a loop that they're just like, okay, we wrote one bar of drums and we're going to do that for 4 minutes and the song's done,
Yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah. No, it feels like there's different sections to it, and it's not just like a single loop throughout the whole game. Or throughout the whole song. And yeah, like a Blow Your Cool as well is great, like a real sort of Streets of Rage vibe to it. Definitely some like 90s house pianos going on in there as well. It's great, and like the percussion on that one is absolutely fantastic as well. I won't be able to speak in as much detail about percussion as you, but yeah, I can definitely get along with it for sure.
Just the way that they used textures, and going from that opening to the part where it kind of sounded like they were trying to put in like a break drum sample, but it wasn't really, because they can't do that for an arcade hardware. And it just the textures is just blowing me away. And maybe I'm a little biased, but I really like when those sorts of things are given the proper time and attention, rather than just kind of glossed over.
Yeah.
We talked briefly a little bit about how sometimes, game soundtrack, you're in the area in the actual game for 4, 5, 10 minutes, and then you go to listen to the soundtrack, and the song that you were just bopping to is actually a minute and a half long, and they just kind of pick the different parts to loop, and here's the beginning part and
Mhm.
here's the end part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
No, these definitely feel more like full songs by comparison to that, for sure.
it it's interesting you bring up sort of the compression as well, Roar, because to me, I can't necessarily speak to the composition of the drums, but I do quite enjoy when and I think it's sort of like it's something that has really bloomed in many different formats. Is when the limitations of the hardware or the format, or just the medium itself, um, demands that there be some compression and sort of like you compose around that. And sort of like you see it now, like with CRT TVs, where people show like, okay, this is how the sprite looks on our flat screens. Now this is how the sprite looked on a CRT television
Mm.
with the pixels kind of like elaborated just so. Who doesn't love the little VHS imperfections? It has been aped a billion times, but it's always the best and feels so great when it's the actual VCR that's messing with it. Because these limitations of the medium, and I forget who said the quote, is sort of like the second that medium starts to get outgrown a little bit, it's those limitations that everyone will fall in love with. And I
Yeah.
think we're definitely hearing that listening to the Outrun soundtrack now. And I think it's part of the reason why, it's associated so heavily with kind of like 80s genres while not necessarily being moored in any way, shape, or form to the actual music of Outrun, but just sort of like this peak of the limitations of the 80s, just like being so much more transcendent than sort of like the extremely high fidelity 2020s in comparison. Am I just talking out my ass
No,
here? Is
no,
this making sense?
you're
No,
making
I got
perfect
you.
sense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's yeah, and, like I think that's true of a lot of mediums, and that's a very interesting quote actually. Just that sort of like the thing you do miss when you when a technology goes away is those weird limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like or even like I often find even just like with games, like when a remaster of a game comes out and they've overtuned the quality of life stuff just a little bit too much.
They
Yeah.
removed your
um
favorite glitch.
yeah. Things like that were like, or like I recently played the Dead Rising remaster, and it's a fantastic remaster, but like it is just it's that tiny step too easy, just too frictionless.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit of me that's just like, maybe I liked the misery of trying to get 6 people to fucking climb up the step into the security room. Like,
Right. Or
maybe.
it's just like, I miss having only 4 inventory slots. What do you mean if it's in a locker somewhere 50 feet away, I can summon it into my pocket?
Yeah.
Well, that's so true, because then it's just like, well, what is the game without these things, without these frustrations? And it's just
Yeah.
like, not nearly as much. Certainly, we have the glorious story of Dead Rising, but other than that,
Yeah.
And I feel with this soundtrack, like they looked at the limitations and they really took them head on because
mm-hmm.
I'm going back to the instrumentation, just like you can visualize in your head like the instrument they wanted to get. And they knew they couldn't get a vibraphone, but they had this kind of twinkly, long decay sound, and they're like, okay, that'll do. And it works because they made sure to go and do the extra steps to make it work.
Yeah,
And the same thing with the
Yeah.
bass and the steel drum in the original sound shower. on the solo there. It's like
Oh,
they
that
took
solo, yeah, it's so cool. Yeah.
they took pieces that may not have been the first choice, but a musician listened to them and said, you know, I can make this the first choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's interesting too with the different composers we have championed through our years here on the pod. You know, something like, you know, you look at Manami Masume's kind of a more classical approach where she thinks of herself like a Beethoven, versus Yuzo Koshiro's kind of just like almost you know, I almost put it in maybe a slightly offensive way, but his mastery of just recreating these sounds and just like having just dedicating so much of the neurons of his brain to like the different sounds that can be made, and sort of
Mhm.
like being able to replicate anything, create anything, and just kind of like going in such vibes based thing. And with this, it seems like there's a real savant nature to the idea that you know, just this creation of songs you'd hear on the radio in the car. And you know, just like I think anybody who's driven has that experience of you hear something, you know, from the FM radio era, where you hear something on the radio, the DJ doesn't say what song it is, and it's lost forever, and you're just like,
Gone.
that was the greatest song I ever heard. That was the greatest 3 minutes of my life, driving along this like, you know, like empty freeway as the sun sets. And you know, I think it's so great with it's so great that he's able to dial into that. And it's so exciting, Roar, hearing you describe the actual musicianship of, you know, doing this kind of like very difficult sort of like, I'm not sure if it was a tracker or what exactly what the software was like, but certainly there was some degree of programming, and just trying to create that sound so it could just be what it felt like to drive a Ferrari in America. Yeah, it's great.
Right. It definitely gives the feeling that the songs were written like on instruments in the office first, and then the
Mm-hmm.
how do we translate it came second, rather than being like, okay, this is what you have to work with, make the music with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, which is the perfect analog to we're just gonna drive a Ferrari in America. There's some in some Outrun history documentary, they said that they were driving on the Autobahn,
Yeah.
yeah, driving as fast as they could, and like the director of Outrun was just like screaming and squealing with joy as he was going like 120 miles per hour in a Ferrari, and just being like, "That's right." And then you're just being like, "This is the game," and then you're just like, "Well, we'll figure out how to program it later." Uh,
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to Outrun 2. So I won't go too much into it just yet. I think we'll jump into the music first, and then I can start my Outrun 2 rant about why I think it's the best racing game ever made. Not to
Light the
tip my hat
fuse.
too much.
Light the fuse.
let's do it.
All right, so we have another version of Passing Breeze, another version of Splash Wave, and then a last track, which is a new track for Outrun 2, is called Shiny World by Fumio Ito.
God, that was so
Yeah.
fucking good. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, especially that last track. Like, one of my favorite tracks on the fucking on the whole soundtrack. Like, but all the reinterpretations are great. There's a bunch of really new good tracks. Like, before you even get into the game itself, like, this soundtrack is fucking incredible. Like, they really, yeah, they didn't have to do what they did for this game, to be honest. Like, but yeah, like, and like that, it doesn't feel out of sync with what's in the previous games. Like, even though, you know, obviously they're just rearrangements, but like, it really feels like he went back to the original tracks here and was just like, okay, what can we do with these to sort of heighten them, and give them, you know, a little bit more going on in them. And yeah, it's just genuinely one of the fucking best soundtracks. Great versions, and just the game itself, I cannot speak highly enough of it. Like, it is, I didn't discover it until the Xbox 360 version. um and at that point, then I was just like, I was instantly hooked on it. Like, the music is great, and then like, it's got one of my favorite sort of drifting, like, in any game. Just the way the drifting feels is so perfectly tuned for the courses. Like, the environments are fucking incredible. Like, there's a real sense of place to them, even though, like, you know, you do your course and you drive through a weird tunnel, and then you come out the other side and suddenly you're in ice world. But like, the way it does that for each of those zones is so good. And like, yeah, it's a real shame that this game is so hard to find, because of the Ferarri licensing has really made it difficult. But there's a bunch of different versions. There's like, there's Outrun 2, Outrun 2 SP, Outrun 2 Coast to Coast, and I think one more version that I'm probably not remembering. Oh, the Xbox Live version is a distinct version as well. But like, they all have the same sort of car physics and handling and everything, and it's great. And as I mentioned, one of my simple pleasures in the world is to go to a barcade and find a cabinet of this game, and get fucking uproariously drunk while I just do fucking 10 run throughs of this. Like, it's a real good time. Any
Hell
thoughts?
yeah. Well, no, what I wanted to ask you, Tom, is like, okay, when you made quite a big deal, is you think that even in the world where you know, Gran Turismo, Shrek Racer, Dubai Wasteland Kart,
Garfield Kart.
exactly, that this is the greatest racing game of
Yeah,
all time. Is
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
just the vibes, or is it and the drifting?
It's, you
Um,
know, it's all of it. Like, as says, the music. I think the soundtrack is such a fucking incredible heighten from what is in the originals. It feels like it's really going back to the philosophy of the original game. As I say, the driving physics are just immaculate. Uh, the just the environments. The gameplay, like, is so simple. You just like run straight to the end, pick your course and go. Like, I think in its simplicity, it sort of allows everything else to really shine through as well. I'm not personally a big fan of sim racers, so like, take that if with a grain of salt. But as far as arcade racing games go, and I'm a big person for arcade racers. I love Burnout. I love Midnight Club. I love shit like that. Like those, I think nothing is better than this game. It's just fucking incredible.
I can
When you had
really
meant, oh, I'm sorry, Reese.
just I wanted to mention, I really pick up what you're putting down, because I don't engage with car games a lot, but the one I have been in love with recently, and I have called it Outrun Kart, just
Yeah,
because
you mentioned that. Yeah.
is Victory Heat Rally, just because
Mm,
it is, I couldn't tell you how it actually compares to some of these other driving games, but it is a game that is so fucking simple. Has the, you know, a couple of different sort of like racing modes everyone loves. You know, there are rally levels, and then just classic race levels, and then a bit more outrunnery, like, you know, just kind of like you're just driving along all of the courses for a bit, trying to beat your rival for the level, stuff like that. But it's like very simple graphics, you know, like
hmm
very simple kind of like drifting mechanic stuff like that. And when racing is stripped down like that, like the arcade racer, oh my god, it's so much better and so much different. Like, it is distilling what's fun about driving into this just perfect
Mm.
chicken nugget of a game.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I'm not a car guy, but I do like driving, like just driving normally. But like, yeah, I think it's just like that stripped back simplicity. I think it's the sort of, I think arcade racing is sort of up there with like shoot 'em ups and yeah, like just as like the perfect form for a video game, where like skill is rewarded so immediately.
Mhm.
Like you know, and like being bad is punished also immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's just one of those things where like it's one of the purest forms of video game, to me. And like that, I think it has flow in the way Tetris does. Like going through, especially when during the summer, I played a lot of the Xbox version.
Mhm.
I was off sick at work, and I was just doing a lot of achievement hunting on the Xbox.
Oh yeah.
So what I was doing was trying to beat all the time trials. To do like the 5 course, you have to do like 5 courses in under 5 minutes, or else you have to do all 15 courses in under 15 minutes, and just like doing those, um and just like working on like your specific lines through each corner, and like making sure that like everything is perfectly tuned, and like that. It's like your good play is rewarded so immediately, and your when you fuck up, you find out immediately as well.
There is one game I just want to mention real quick, and I haven't played it yet, but it seems to borrow a lot from Outrun, and that is Buck Up and Drive. If you haven't heard of it, maybe go pop a video on real quick, watch 30 seconds of it, and say, "Oh yeah, I see why she mentioned that." But back to Outrun 2006. You had mentioned it, and I, the disbeliever, said, "Well, Wreckfest exists, so." I went and investigated Outrun 2006 myself, and I agree. I don't think video games need to look any better than Outrun
Nope.
2006. I don't think they need to do more than Outrun 2006. I feel like I had mentioned, that Sega was able to kind of bring that feeling that those Dreamcast games had, of like that soft ocean water and just like smooth tunes and just like the
Mm.
feeling of lightness, and translate it to whipping a Testarossa around those chicanes. I can see how in so many car games nowadays, like the last three Need for Speeds have been about breaking the law like a criminal. And it's just
Yeah.
like nothing focuses on the fun of driving for people who don't give a shit about how their gears are tuned
Yeah.
than Outrun 2. And for that, I'm with you. It is the best arcade racer there is.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I love a good Need for Speed, but yeah, that's definitely been a problem with the more recent Need for Speeds as well. Is like, they're just, yeah, they're obsessed with fucking with this sort of cop and racer sort of dichotomy.
And not that
um,
I'm all for following things like speed limits, but
yeah,
like at the same time, I just want to drive a car that I made to look like a Hot Wheels car very fast in an
yeah,
urban setting, and not have to worry about the law that I would actually encounter had I done the same where I
yeah.
live.
Um, Yeah, because like it's one of those really frustrating things where you're like, I want to just drive around, but now I've randomly got a bunch of cops chasing me, so now I need to stop whatever I was doing. I can't do any races while this is happening. I can't do anything at all. I just have to sort of focus on getting rid of the cops before I can return to actually playing the game, which is kind of bullshit. And I hate it. um, but yeah, it's fucking great. I love it. I've mentioned I've been playing a lot of fucking what's it called, Midnight Club LA as well recently. Um, and like as good as that is, there's a lot of that sort of like tuning your gears bullshit to it that I'm just like, I could not give a fuck. I just want to get a nice car that can drift around corners and has good grip. That's all I care about.
It doesn't have to resemble reality at all,
No.
and that's the beauty of Outrun, is just like it takes you outside of the real world of I forgot to do my oil change, and it just like distills it down to babe, car, sunlight, music, done.
Yeah. And yeah, I suppose you haven't really talked about the music, like these versions, Roar. But yeah, you were really vibing on them when we were listening to the tracks. There, have you any sort of
It
specific thoughts
it
on them?
it sounded like that HIRO reapproached the songs that he made as somebody who loved them and wanted to make them their own, but the same level of talent came to it, which gave us like the beautiful kind of way that the guitar played just back enough that it was there to enjoy if you were listening for it. In
Yeah.
the revisit of which one I already forgot.
That was the first one was the Passing Breeze. Yeah.
Passing Breeze, right.
Yeah.
And it felt lovely. And I mentioned during the last track, a coward would have cut it at 3.5 minutes, because somebody much lazier who just wanted to ship a game would have said, "Yeah, this is a fully formed thought." But they just kept exploring, adding texture, letting different instruments get a chance to shine. I thought
Mm,
it was just a really it was like love letters to the same songs that he had made in the past. And like I just think there's something so beautiful about that, to just be able to take something from chips and bips to, okay, now we have this like beautiful layer of kind of borrowing from the Gran Turismo sort of acid jazz menu music, but making it exciting to bring to the track, where other games use licensed music to kind of do the same thing. Outrun was like, no thanks, we have our own and it's a lot better.
And the richness and sort of like the fun, like complicated details, just all surrounding this fucking crazy emotional guitar that you were talking about in the break for push.
it's wild. He's
And
really
it
fucking
is like,
yeah.
you know, like to me, I really took, it really felt like, you know, in the break I called it the ending credits to the greatest MacGyver TV movie they never made. Because I don't know, there's just something that people feel like they're not allowed, that, you know, they have the cop inside them says don't do a 6 minute uh guitar song like this with all this crazy shit going on.
Yeah.
But they just did it because they're just like, yeah, this is Outrun 2, motherfucker. There are no rules except the rules that we impose on ourselves. And it's and I don't know, it was so incredible. I'm gonna have to find a way to play Outrun 2 because that was
Yeah.
incredible.
I will.
It is
Yeah.
it is. I am furious at the Ferrari Corporation. I'm furious at the Italians once again. Uh,
You had a week of
for
clemency, and now we're back to fucking.
well, now we're back. um, but but yeah, just because it seems super cool, and I don't know, but I do have to say it is something that Sega asked for a little bit karmically, just because my understanding is that they were a bit litigious, whatever how you pronounce that word, um, when Outrun was at its heyday, because they would, any game with a red car that was kind of aping it, they would just be like, no, 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 that's Outrun. Only Outrun has we've licensed the color red forever on cars. Or and you know it, and so now it's not a surprise that they have such a fraught relationship with the Ferrari franchise, Ferrari intellectual property.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, but still, I find it hard to blame them. Just like, but because of Outrun, I have no opinion on cars and what's a cool car, except there are two cars I like. One is a Porsche because it test drive that I played when I was a kid, which I
Oh yeah.
couldn't go back to now. But when I was a kid, I was just like very impressed with it. Um, and Outrun. And I'm just like, and anytime I see a Ferrari Testarossa, I'm just like, damn, the Outrun car, the car from my favorite video game, Outrun, that invented it. And so it's just, like, I understand you can't not have it identifiably be a Ferrari, but I don't know. I just wish there was a way that we could still play it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will be able to in one of the Yakuzas in the future.
One would hope. All right, so we'll jump into the last block of tracks here. So I've just got two more. Another version of Passing Breeze. This one is from the version of Outrun 2, which is Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. And then we have by Yasuhiro Takagi, Rush a Difficulty, and again that's from Outrun 2006. I think that one originally was in Turbo Outrun. amazing stuff. Just all the MIDI sax you can fucking, yeah, all you want.
Just like
um,
13 people ripping together. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's great. It's such a cool, like, incredible arrangements, and like that, you never feel that you lose the originals in them with all the additional instrumentation and everything else that's going on with them. Like they feel part of the same lineage, and that's really great. And I love the first track. Like, obviously it's another version of Passing Breeze. Of course, I love it, but just the way they managed to dial in on like a very specific sound for each of these different songs, um but it never feels like it's the wrong way to do it, you know. It's weird that like they have all the amount of different versions they can sort of pull out for this, where he's like, okay, we're going to do it like this is a little bit more rocky, this is a little bit more sort of jazz fusiony, you know, and like he's able to dial in the settings for these different sort of genres very quickly, and it works out really fucking well.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's just like the a love for the original that they just built off of and said, okay, this time we're going to lean into the bossa feel, and this time we're going to use a guitar with this tone to kind of,
Mm,
and it's everything sounds distinct, but it doesn't sound disparate. Doesn't sound
yeah,
like you're getting two different, because that could be jarring to have two songs that just like sound instrument with the instrumentation and kind of the way that it's played just different enough that it's like, okay, now I kind of feel like I'm listening to a soundtrack rather than experiencing a whole, you know?
hmm, absolutely, yeah. And even then, like bringing like in Passing Breeze, like 5 minutes into that track, you start hearing strings and new synth sounds that weren't there before. Like, you know, these aren't just like, as we've mentioned, like a lot of games will just do like a minute loop or whatever, but like these are fully fleshed out into like big fucking massive jams.
And I think it's important because like there's the old like house music kind of formula where it's like 4 bars of this, add something, 4 bars of that, add something
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
Like the additions don't feel tacked on. They feel like it's just like we love this and we want to keep going. And yeah, I could have stopped at minute 4 or 5, but
yeah. But we're jamming.
I had more to say.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love it. Yeah, I'd say that was from the coast to coast version, which is the console version of the game, which does have a lot more extra gameplay stuff to it. But as I mentioned, I sort of it's the simplicity of the game that sort of is the appeal to me. So I've never really gotten into playing all the single player stuff. Like it's just a lot of busy work where I just most of the time when I want to play Outrun, I want to just sit down and just do a run straight through from start to finish of one of them. Like that's sort of my whole vibe with the game. Um, but yeah, I think we're going to start finishing up now because this episode is running pretty fucking long. Not that I'm complaining too much, but yeah, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Or it's been a real pleasure again. The previous episode we did was Sonic. And we did one more with you. I'm drawing a
Jammer
blank on what
Lammy.
that was. Oh, Jammer Lammy, that was it. Yeah, two great soundtracks, great episodes, and yeah, thank you so much for
I
joining us again.
love hanging with y'all, and you always give me the coolest soundtracks to hang out with y'all too. So
Well, you always give us the coolest feedback.
Yeah.
Just your reads on the percussion and just the musicianship in general is so
Mm.
fascinating. As a music dullard in terms of composition, I love having you on so much because I really love being able to understand the actual structures involved rather than
Yeah.
just being like, dang, doesn't this sound good? It's like a VCR, but in my ears. Uh, so
Yeah. No,
thank you
I
so
think.
much, Roar Jasmine. It was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to have you on, and like that, you know, I don't think we overemphasize ourselves too much in sort of knowing a lot about music or whatever. So it's always nice to have somebody on who can speak from a position of experience and expertise that we don't have. Rather than he's just going, oh, music good.
Oh gosh,
Yes.
you make a girl blush.
So yeah, have you anything you want to plug or anything before we go out?
You know, someday I'll finish that book of poetry I've been writing,
Oh
all three
yeah.
of these episodes, but there's things going on that kind of might lend some urgency to that effort. But other than that, I'm just chilling, vibing. If you're on Twitch, you can look up humidifier with ones replacing the I's and a 3 replacing the
Classic.
E. Sometimes I do that. Other than that, no, not too much to plug. I'm just happy to
Okay.
be here.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's great to have you back on again. Reese, do your plugs. Tell people where you can find you.
You can check me out to find my other podcast, Video Games Are the Worst Thing on Earth, where we do leftist video game culture and news analysis. And we are so normal. We are so
There are
normal.
no hammer enthusiasts involved.
No, I don't even know what you're referencing. We had the most baseline boring episode about the CEO shooter we just recorded. And we just
I bet it
recorded
was
it, and
very
then they
normal.
found out who he was. And so like literally the whole like 7 hour recording is kind of null and void, and we're just gonna put it out anyways. Cause that's the Vegetato
I
style.
mean, by the in 3 months' time when it's actually finished edited, I'm sure nobody will remember this.
It'll have looped back around to being referenced. I find my totally bullshit excuse for why that's great is that it just be like news moves so fast, right?
Yeah,
It's just like and I think we provide a service by giving you a window in time
it's like a news
months ago.
nostalgia podcast.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like the newsroom. Um, exactly. And so you look at it and you're like, that's right. That's just now I got some time to process it. And so we help you process.
That thing
Uh,
also happened this month.
Yeah.
And I also have existential warfare, which I swear to God, I'm gonna get another episode out one of these days. So yeah, that's it. Don't follow my personals. I tweet like a crazy person. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so as for ourselves, we can be found on Patreon, patreon.com/CRT Sound System. We're on Blue Sky, where I mostly post these days, CRT Sound System on there. Come and join us in the Discord if you want to hang out and talk about Outrun music or whatever the hell else. If you do have a Patreon, you can actually find our feed on Spotify now, so that's there. And the normal feed is also on Spotify and everywhere else that you can find it. Come on the show. One plug, because probably worth mentioning, was recently a friend of the show, Kay, did their video on feminism that I thought was a really, really good video, and I think everybody enjoyed it that saw it. And I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to plug that as a friend of the show and your co-host on your other podcast.
Yeah,
Reese.
that is a crazy good YouTube video, and
Yeah.
one where everybody was just like, I've seen so many people post just like, oh, how wonderful, a new K video, and then it's like 2 seconds later, it's just be like, well, my
That's
enthusiasm
just
is
your
dampened
opinion.
by the how absolutely savagely depressing what they're talking about is. um,
Fantastic.
you
Yeah, no,
know.
it's a really good if grim episode or essay. Um,
Yeah.
I
yeah. So
admire Kay's brand of melancholy.
yeah.
Oh, so say we all.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to go out then with this last track, which is let me just double check there. Yeah, so it's a remix of Magical Sound Shower. This remix done by my good friend and previous subject of episodes, Richard Jacques. One of my favorite composers. So I had once I saw he had a remix on this, I was like, I'm going to have to include that. So thank you so much for joining us, Roar. Thank you, Reese, as always, and thank you everyone for listening. Good night.
Thank you, Roar.
Thank y'all.